So since I've got a theologian and a CEO on the screen right now, here's a question. This was a cold start. I haven't given Dave any heads up on this, so you're just going to have to realize Dennis is a jerk and Dave's trying to keep me from being embarrassing.
Oh boy.
I want to think about the classic mass production systems of a church: sermons, Bible studies, small groups, mission trips, all right? And I want to ask the question, how does that relate to the formation of disciples? Where's the positives? Where's the negatives?
Wow. Well, I've been a youth pastor. I think you probably know that, and it is so limiting because it's an artificial. And I'm going to be honest. I think it's an artificial, sanitary environment where we can wear masks, we can hide. You got to put your best foot forward. There's value. Obviously, you can use it to hopefully speak truth and give people the idea of a great worldview, a biblical worldview. You can take them on mission trips and Bible studies, and you can get the knowledge and you can hear all that. But there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Between knowledge and actually living it out, praxis. And so for me, the limiting factor of the church is we're too focused on knowledge and not on praxis.
Hello everyone, Dennis Allen. This is The Disciple Dilemma. I'm in the business world, and for a long time I've wished somebody would actually write a script on why it's so critically important for individuals to mentor, to disciple people in the workplace, much as Christ told us to disciple people in our regular lives. Well, finally I got my wish. CEO, author, and theologian Dave Hataj, who's the president of Edgerton Gear, has written a book, The Craftsman's Code. And we've got a wonderful interview with him today talking about why it matters to walk alongside one person to build a disciple, to build a craftsman, to build manufacturing, to build discipleship. This is a great interview because it covers a raft of issues, both biblical and business oriented. So whether you're part of the church or part of a business arena, this is a great conversation for you. Here we go. Well, Dave Hataj, thank you for returning to The Disciple Dilemma. We're delighted to have you with us today.
Dennis, it is a pleasure. I really look forward to being with you again.
You've kind of been up to some mischief since the last time we talked, and you've gone out in the world and you've cranked out a book, The Craftsman's Code, a blueprint for building a meaningful life and an enduring legacy. That is huge, brother. What are you up to here? I mean, that's a pretty big claim. Are you going to get mail from, false marketing? What's this about?
Oh, I hope so. Challenge me on it. I hope so. Dennis, I'm working with a lot of young people. In fact, I'm looking out my window and I got my gear shop right next to me. And this last year, we hired 5 young men under the age of 19. And that has convinced me more than ever what this generation is looking for. It's young men who are yearning for purpose. They're yearning for mentoring, and our society is letting them down. So I actually wrote this book during COVID, really making me think, what does this next generation need really? And quick story, I was in a dark place during COVID, like a lot of us were. I did the rough draft. My wife read it. She hated it. So then she goes, you got to rewrite it. It's just too dark. So I rewrote it, and she said, you know what? It's better, but it doesn't have enough of your story and your perspective in it. I was quoting a lot of other people. Mm-hmm. So I rewrote it the 3rd time, and when she got to the end and she cried, and I said, is that good or bad? And she goes, no, this is good. This is good. She goes, this is what these young men, especially young men and women, need. They need this perspective that they're important, that they need, that they're here for a reason, and that we can offer them purpose and hope for a future.
So here's the question that I think we should clear up. Who'd you write this book for, Dave? Did you write it for guys like me who need to remember that those employees matter, or did you write it for the employees so that they know that they matter? Who'd you write the book for?
Both. Everybody, hopefully. It started out with my first book, Good Work. That was primarily for business owners. Here's a vision of how our blue collar work can really change our communities. We're the foundation of our communities. We built our communities, whether it's the construction guys, the machinists, the electricians, the concrete guys. We are the foundation of any community in the history of the world, the blue collar tradesmen and craftsmen. Then and a big part of that is understanding the role of goodness that comes through us and how we do our work. The kingdom of God comes through the goodness, the quality of our work, and the quality of our relationships. That's expressed through our work. But then people started asking, well, what about for the individuals? What about for the young person who's trying to find their way? Or what about for the employee who's not a business owner? Can I make an impact? How does my life have vision or purpose and meaning? And so I really wrote the book with those folks in mind, especially for young people. I actually, this last few months ago, I said, hey guys, my shop, I'm writing a book. I want to see if it relates to all of you. How many of you would like to be in a book club? Half of my shop raised their hands. So we had 20 guys who went through the book as a book study, as kind of a focus group. And the response was so encouraging because these guys are going, I've never heard this before, except Dave, coming from you. To put this in a book form where we can chew on this and say, what is it? I'm just an ordinary person. I have dignity. I have purpose. I can have a life of deep purpose and significance. I'm excited to see the response, but I want people like you and I and just mid-level people, all of ages, to realize we're all ordinary, but God does extraordinary things through ordinary people.
There is in the business workplace today this ethos that says that if profit is king, I don't really need to worry about ethics and I don't really need to worry about people. People are commodities just like the rest of the business. How do you kind of frame up your thinking against that kind of, let's call it the Wall Street offensive play?
To be blunt, I think it's stupid.
Well, surely you want to make a profit, Dave. Surely you want to make a buck.
Well, you have to. I mean, I had a professor at the seminary, actually theological school, and he actually asked us, and I was the only business guy, I was the only machinist in the class. Everybody else were pastors and so on.
Sheep among wolves, huh?
And he said, what do you think is more important, profit or people? And grew up in the family business, and I'm sitting there going, well, it's profit. And all the other students said, oh my gosh, no, it's people. And the professor, great guy named Walt Wright, he said, Dave, you're actually right, because if you don't have profit, you don't have a business. So I'm not being naive about it, but however, the people part of it is right there with the profit. And so my perspective over the years, run the shop for 34 years, if I don't care about my people, if I don't invest them and grow them, I can't turn out a good profit. I can't turn out a good product. So I've kind of evolved to the point where now, instead of looking at making gears and using people as a means to make good gears, now I'm realizing making gears is a means for me to invest in people. And the more I do that, guess what? Profitability goes up, productivity goes up, our culture changes, life and work is much more joyful.
Folks, we're talking with Dave Hataj, who is the CEO of Edgerton Gear, and he's written a book called The Craftsman's Code. Dave, in your book, and you've used this term already once in our podcast today, there's this word mentor, which to most people in America today, there's a little bit of a yawn. Oh yeah, that's where some geezer, some boomer, some dude walks up and goes like, yeah, I'm really the uber goober of knowledge, and you need to kiss my feet and kind of hang around with me a little bit, and the glow will transfer to you, and then everything will be okay for you because you're on my team, you're in my mafia, you're part of my tribe. That's the kind of thing that I keep hearing from people when I suggest we need to mentor people. I keep getting back these responses. Oh, that's what mentorship is. Help us think a little bit about how you've tried to portray that word both as an ethos and a book.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, again, going back to business, and the reason I came up with the Craftsman Code and the whole Craftsman with character, class and program I came up with is in business, in manufacturing, in the trades, we're all struggling with the sustainable workforce. And so everybody wants to train for skills. We want to do a lot of recruiting, but when you get down to it, our best resources are young people. And when you understand where young people are today, with our brokenness, with social media, with all the things that's going on in society, they're looking for something real. They're looking for examples. They're looking for what does it mean to live a good life. And so us old farts who have been around the block a few times, it's not just about, oh yes, we're the gurus. No, we need to look at these young people and say, you need a set of values and disciplines for you to be successful. So mentoring to me is not about me sharing wisdom. It's about me coming along these young folks and building them up and giving them a sense of that purpose and dignity that they're often lacking. And the crazy thing that's happened to me running this Craftsman with Character for a dozen years in our shop, I have multiple generations now who are mentoring. The 30-year-olds are mentoring the 20-year-olds. The 20-year-olds are mentoring the 16-year-olds. And old guys like me are just kind of coaching them and trying to create a mentoring culture where we're always encouraging and building each other up and holding each other accountable. And when that happens, I am not recruiting employees. I am fully staffed. I have a waiting list of people who want to come work for me because these young guys are sharing with each other like, man, I have a sense of purpose here. I feel like I'm cared for and I'm being seen and I'm being listened to. And work is like the best thing about my life right now.
I think that what you framed is that deepest of all yearnings in the human soul. Pastors, elders, deacons, lean in here for just a second, because as we're talking about business, yes, we are talking about business, this smears all over the church, because what Dave is talking about is the why. Dave is giving people a why. How and what and when are the secondary symptoms of someone who's deploying the why by walking alongside people. So as I think about this why, Dave, what I want to try to reach in for with you in this conversation is, why should Christians care about a manufacturing operation? Why should Christians think that the Craftsman's Code is worth my read? Why should Christians take a look at what you're talking about?
God is a worker. Jesus came in the form of a craftsman. And so if we really come with the mindset that work is important, it's a part of the kingdom of God. It's how the kingdom of God primarily spreads. It's not through so much preaching, it's through doing and being an exemplar of all the goodness that God calls us to be.
I want to try and make a statement, and I'd like for you to feel really comfortable at pushing back or leaning in on it. Raymond's always pushing back on us. In fact, if Raymond was here, he'd at least want to slide in a line right now. Raymond, by the way, we're cheering for your recovery. We're out there really cheering for you. Raymond would say, and not only that, what Dave is doing is the same thing as Jesus. Jesus was in manufacturing. He would want to say that. Okay, I think that the number one failure in Western Christianity today, okay, I'm getting ready to make a big statement here, so I'm looking for honesty to push or pull. The number one failure in Western Christianity today is we are trying to disciple from the pews, just as a CEO is trying to say, well, you guys all go read my value statements, you guys all memorize my mission statement, and you guys all go out there and just do a great job, instead of individually walking alongside individuals who have to be walked alongside individually in order to become individuals who know who they are, why they are. Give me a, now that's Christianity I'm attacking there, but also the business world. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I think you're right on. I think we're all, I don't know if I want to say victim of really bad theology and bad philosophy, where we separate the sacred from the secular, right? I mean, and you know that better than anybody. So when I look at how we engage young people and their heart cry for what they're looking for, it is that walking alongside of them to expose, to take an honest look at all the darkness inside of them, the struggles, the trauma, and all of that. You don't deal with that just by preaching at them. You got to walk alongside them. Salvation was not a prerequisite for discipleship. That's a pretty powerful statement, because the disciples didn't have a clue what they were getting into when they started walking with Jesus. Young guys walking in my shop, they don't have a clue who we are about as a business. but I'm going to start discipling them and not beat them over the head with the Bible, but say, you know what? You need to be a good person. You need to show up on time. You need to look me in the eye. You need to be a man of integrity and excellence.
Mass production can only occur when the individual producer has been mentored and developed to be able to run at quantity and at speed. You cannot mass produce disciples. You cannot mass produce good employees. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I'm running the Craftsman character class, in our company. In our company every year, I get 10 to 12 young high school students, and we listen to their stories. You got to understand where they're coming from, whether they're coming from broken homes or trauma or whatever it is. They're all individuals. We're all individuals. So you can't apply a mass production approach to individuals when you're mentoring them. You got to be able to listen and hear them. I got one guy that's texted me last night, 19 years old, and he goes, Dave, I'm in another situation. And so, and he needs to unpack it, and there's stuff like, and I won't get into the details, but there are so many individual situations that us old guys and other people in general just need to listen. And just like Jesus, you got to approach people one-on-one and care for them and love them and grow them up.
So since I've got a theologian and a CEO on the screen right now, here's a question. This was a cold start. I haven't given Dave any heads up on this, so you're just going to have to realize Dennis is a jerk and Dave's trying to keep me from being embarrassing.
Boy.
I want to think about the classic mass production systems of a church: sermons, Bible studies, small groups, mission trips, all right? And I want to ask the question, how does that relate to the formation of disciples? Where's the positives? Where's the negatives?
Wow. Well, I've been a youth pastor. I think you probably know that. And it is so limiting because it's such an artificial, and I'm going to be honest, I think it's an artificial sanitary environment where we can wear masks, we can hide. You got to put your best foot forward. There's value. Obviously, you can use it to hopefully speak truth and give people the idea of a great worldview, a biblical worldview. You can take them on mission trips and Bible studies, and you can get the knowledge and you can hear all that. But there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Between knowledge and actually living it out, praxis. And so for me, the limiting factor of the church is we're too focused on knowledge and not on praxis. And where praxis happens is in the workplace. Eugene Peterson had a great quote before he passed away, and he says, I contend that the primary location of spiritual development is where? In the workplace. Why? Because in the workplace, we fail. The workplace exposes our faulty worldviews. The workplace shows us where we struggle and where we need to improve. The workplace holds us to a level of integrity and accountability that we often can't get just on Sunday mornings, because again, we can fake it. But when I'm working with my guys 40, 50, 60 hours a week, they see the good, bad, and ugly of me. I see the good, bad, and ugly of them, right? Failure is, and then often in the church, we have circular firing squads. You fail, you're stumbling, let's attack each other. In the workplace, failure is how we learn. I love it when my guys fail, hopefully not too expensively.
Yeah.
Right? But when they fail, it's an opportunity to say, okay, how can you be better? What did you learn? I can't think of one single thing, Dennis, that I've ever learned in my life through success. Right? It's always the failures. So I think the kingdom of God and churches, we don't have those opportunities to fail because we're afraid to fail because, again, we get punished for it. In the workplace, hopefully, in a mentoring culture, which I try to create and talk about in the book, that's where we can grow and hopefully prosper. When people feel safe in being who they are and giving their best efforts and failing because they tried, that's when growth can happen. And that's when real community starts happening and coming together.
I think that one of the most important conversations I have with Christian leaders is to stop thinking about church as the do-all, end-all for
Yes.
making disciples. In other words, I keep trying to encourage pastors to think of yourselves
Yeah.
as the coaches and the trainers in a gymnasium. The gymnasium is where we work out. I mean, we may have some good connections to trips and activities and those sorts of things, which are great and wonderful. And all this is necessary. Sermons are necessary. A good life in a church
Yep.
activity is necessary. However, it's a gymnasium. That's not the real
Yeah.
playing field. The
I love
same
that. I
sort
love
of
that.
thing that I'm picking up from you here is my role as a leader in the business is to be kind of the chief coach.
Yep.
I'm trying to talk about here's our mission, here's our purpose, here's our identity, here's the way we
Yeah.
think about ourselves, here's what's important to our corporation. But when we walk out on the floor, what I'm hearing from you is we have someone in this organization who's going to be with you until you
Yeah.
get it. And then we expect you to walk
Yeah.
alongside someone and help them get it. Am I
Yeah.
close to where you're going with this?
So what you're saying, I think, is exactly dead on. We have to look at all of us as ministers, as ways to serve the needs of the world. And so when pastors put all of that pressure on themselves to be the ministers, that's just soul, and what is it? Soul sucking. It's debilitating. But when we can release the work of the ministry, as it says in Ephesians 4, to everybody, my gosh, that's when the world changes, because now we're releasing everybody with all their gifts to be in every corner of society, which is really crazy and radical.
For those of you who were asleep before when I was blabbing, Dave just implicated you. If you are a believer in Christ, you are in full-time ministry. It is your job. There's no retirement plan. Folks, we're talking with Dave. We're talking with Dave Hataj, who is the author of the Craftsman's Code, a blueprint for building a meaningful life and an enduring legacy. And when we come back, we're going to take Dave into the geopolitical world of China and why what he's doing matters. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Folks, we're back with Dave Hataj, who has written the book, The Craftsman's Code, a blueprint for building a meaningful life and an enduring legacy. That is a big claim. Speaking of big claims, Dave, we've got the Sino Dragon, China, which today owns twice as much manufacturing value add as America. That's a complete reversal over the last, call it 20 years. We used to have double theirs. Now they've got double ours. I want to ask you this question. Can American manufacturing get back to its heyday of the 60s and 70s and 80s?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we are so far behind as far as the massive production. However, and from my perspective, what we've got going is how innovative and creative we are. And I think and a small example is my own company. We are putting out approximately 10 times the amount of product that we were with less than half the staff from, say, 15, 20 years ago. So looking at the level of technology, and I'm not just talking about AI, I'm talking machine tools, the creative process that we can put in place. I'm seeing it across the board in our industry. I'm in the gear industry. The level of expertise and just excellence is insane. Now, here's the thing. I think that the big difference from a communist country to someone like the US, right? We can release the creativity in people that I think you can't under a communist regime, when people are looked at just as, perhaps as just robots or people. In my company, when you take a 20-year-old and you put him in charge of selecting a $250,000 machine tool and say, what do you think? I want you in charge of this, because you have proven yourself to be so incredibly talented and creative and disciplined. I want your best ideas. I have a 40-man shop. I have 40 people that are bringing their best ideas. It daily blows my mind at just how intelligent and how passionate and how creative they are. So from my perspective on the grander scheme, as we do that, and I'm seeing other countries other companies across the board in our industry that are doing that, it sets us above that to such a level that if we truly unleash the manufacturing potential in this country, I don't think there's any limits.
Let me ask this question to a CEO. Do we have enough people in America to do this?
Um, yes and no. Um, Unfortunately, as I wrote about before, in the 1990s, we started closing and or greatly reducing our tech ed departments in local high schools because we sent this message that tech ed of the future is not going to be shop class. It's going to be lab coats and computers. So unfortunately, we've lost an entire generation of young people that should be in the trades and manufacturing. They would typically find their place in our industries. We're clawing that back now. High schools are waking up, industry is waking up.
Here's a challenging question for you to play with. Again, folks, I'm ambushing our poor guest on the podcast, but we're having fun, so we'll do it. I flushed your book out to a few people and said, I'd like your comments, and I focused on Gen Z, a couple of Gen Xers and a millennial.
Yeah.
One of the questions that came back was, come on, Dave, you have to take human labor out of that shop floor and you have to replace it with machine labor. This is a declining benefit that you're advertising to try to recruit people. Give us the real story. Aren't you going to have to automate to survive?
Of course we are. Of course we're going to use technology and automate. But who's going to run the automation? Right? And so to me, I've got a good friend who runs, of all places, a Frito-Lay plant that makes chips, right? Down in Beloit, Wisconsin. So much of their work making potato chips was all manual. They were having people manually cut up potatoes. I mean, and package. It was crazy. I mean, this plant's been around for a long time. Great Christian brother. He said, you know what? We are going to completely automate our entire factory of making chips. They didn't lose one person. They didn't lay anybody off. Why? Because they reskilled, they upskilled everybody to be able to do even more. So when I'm going to put automation in our shop, that's not getting rid of people. That's increasing our capacity for production, but it's also giving people more opportunities to learn more, to manage those machine tools, to manage those robots, to manage the whole production, everything that we're doing. And who doesn't want to learn more and have more responsibility? Dennis Bakke wrote a great book years ago, Joy at Work. When we give people the responsibility, the dignity of making decisions and owning their departments, what greater joy is that? That's what God calls us to do, is to have joy in our work by having responsibility to make decisions. So, no, I'm not going to lay anybody. We haven't laid anybody off in 63 years. Why would I do that now?
Okay, wow. There's a big claim right there. 63 years with no layoffs. I want to focus on this other question because I think it's worthy of your response as well. Statistically, as you look at the surveys amongst the Gen Zs, their number one workplace fear is artificial intelligence displacing their role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Number two fear is no job security. What's a CEO going to say to those people that are listening to you on this podcast?
I think, first of all, that's a very worthy concern. And I don't discount that at all. My oldest son is here in the business and he is an AI guru. He's recoding our whole ERP system. And the advent of artificial intelligence just in the last 4 months has been stunning. It's a seismic shift, earthquake that's happening through, I think, many sectors of our economy. I don't want to be flippant, but I'm saying finally, people are thinking in terms of what's going to give me a job that's going to be secure. And guess what? The trades and manufacturing, they're pretty much AI-proof jobs because you can't get a computer to unplug your toilet. I can't get a computer to set up my machine tools out here. I can't get a computer can help me. It's a tool. But I think for the first time in my generation, I can with confidence tell people, get into manufacturing, the trades, because it's probably the most AI-proof careers that are out there in our society right now.
I love that answer. I would also pass on to folks, hey, We need immigrants coming into America legally, but we need immigrants
Yep.
coming to America. We need to fill up our coffers with good, talented,
Yeah.
motivated people. That's number one. And number two, for all you
Yep.
Gen Zers, we need to have kids.
Yeah.
If we don't start having
Exactly.
kids, we're going to have robots because there won't be anybody to take your place when you retire. So
Exactly. Exactly.
So, folks, we're talking with Dave Hataj, who has written The Craftsman's Code, and he's talking about a blueprint for building a meaningful life and an enduring legacy. Dave, as we wrap this up, I'd like for you to lean in and talk to pastors, elders, deacons, Sunday school teachers, Bible study group leaders, and I want you to explain to them, you might want to take a look at my book because. Let's hear about that.
Well, Dennis, I would first of all challenge that audience that you're talking about. Go read your Bibles, right? Go look at, and specifically, go look at Malachi chapter 4, verse 6. God goes silent, very last verse of the Old Testament. And then go look in chapter 1 of Luke. There's a 400-year silence of God, after Malachi to Luke. And then it's the angel Gabriel talking to Zechariah, the husband of Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, the cousin of Jesus. Look at those two verses of what Gabriel says and what Malachi said. And there's a phrase in there that has blown me away in the last year or two, where it says, the sign of the kingdom will basically be the hearts of the fathers being turned towards their children, and the children hearts turned toward their fathers. Now, I don't hear that in church much, but the kingdom is us passing on this blessing to the next generation. How does that happen? Yes, it does happen partly in church, but man, this is a 7-day-a-week job that we have a responsibility for. So I'm hoping pastors, elders, church people would understand, take a look at this kingdom perspective from a workplace perspective, because it will unleash, it can change. I'm convinced, Dennis, it can radically change our society if we understand that us older people can raise up the younger people to be people of dignity and excellence and discipline. And the younger people are looking for that. And too often the church isn't providing the answers, because we are made to work. And one of the primary jobs that we have, there's an old Jewish proverb who says a father who does not teach his son to work is akin to teaching him robbery. That's powerful.
That is powerful.
And in order for us to have our sense of purpose for this young generation, understand that they need to know where they fit, and they need to know where they fit by working. And so we have a huge responsibility. And so I would say, please read the book and get a vision and a worldview that says, man, we are meant to engage the world on every single level, every corner of society.
Wow. I sometimes get ridiculed for asking this question because everybody says we already know the answer to it, but I'm going to raise this as a conversation piece to you. Where do you get this book, and what formats are you sending this book out in?
Well, I have a website now. It's kind of funny. I haven't been a social media guy until this last few months, because I decided, instead of just blowing off social media and saying, oh, it's all too toxic, I've decided to re-engage it. And I feel God saying, you need to be in those toxic places that people don't want to be at, because that's where you're needed. That's where we're all needed, right? And so now I have a website, davehatag.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I've started a Substack. My book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's on Kindle. It's the print version. There's an audio book. So yeah, it's out there. So if you look for it, you shouldn't have any problems finding it. And Dennis, if I could put a plug in, I'm trying to write whimsical stuff on social media. I would love it if your listeners would engage me with that, because we need to overwhelm social media with positivity and hope and encouragement instead of so much of the crap that's out there, right? So
I'll send some of my problem guys over to you first.
Okay. Have at it. It'll be fun.
Folks, we've had a conversation with Dave Hataj, who has written the Craftsman's Code. He is the head of Edgerton Gear. He has been a man with a vision for young people, but he's also a guy who's trying to say to the church, there's a model biblically about the way to do this. So as we wrap up, Dave, I want to give you kind of the last word. If you've got a summary point that you want to make for people, either reading the book or thinking about some key thought you have, we'd love to hear it.
Last words. I think I've said everything I could possibly say, but I think bottom line, we need to rethink about what our worldview is, not only about work, not only about our faith, but just what our role is in it. I often say there are no part-time followers of Jesus, and no matter where you're at on your faith journey, take a look at this book anyway, because we are not an accident. We are all made for a sense of purpose, and I would love to engage people to think about what that is. All questions are welcome. All arguments are welcome, because this is an important topic. If we don't have a sense of purpose and connected to people, what's life about?
Dave Hataj, thank you for joining us again on The Disciple Dilemma.
Dennis, always my pleasure. You are one of the most enjoyable people I ever get to talk to. Thank you.
Would you help the church think more about discipleship? Would you help us get the conversation started to talk about the biblical discipleship Jesus gave us? Please follow us. Our website, www.thediscipledilemma.com. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and all the RSS feeds. If you'd follow or like us, you'll help us get leverage in the digital marketplace to talk about the fact that discipleship needs to be talked about. And as always, folks, thanks for listening.